I would like to ask Dr. Bu Castro from the President of the Philippine Hospital Association and member of IHF to come and take over the stage. Please, Dr. Bu Castro.
Thank you very much, Eric. What a big hand for Eric and Paula Wilson. Our next plenary session is about the time, and now is the time for action in building a culture of healthcare excellence. And to emphasize the need that now is the time are two respected speakers on the topic. And may I call to the stage Dr. Hm13PlenaryII and Mr. Vishal Bali. Let me introduce them to you at the same time so that after one speaker, then the next one takes over immediately. The brief description of the topics is in your official handbook, so let me skip that. Let me just give a brief background of Dr. Hm13PlenaryII, currently the COO of the Medical Affairs of Bangkok Dusit Medical Services PLC, the largest private healthcare group in Southeast Asia, and the CEO and the chairman of the Committee of Bangkok Hospital Medical Center. He has the overall responsibility for the success of the management and operations of the entire BMC through his combined expertise in the international healthcare industry and visionary strategic management. He is an American board certified in pediatrics and quality assurance and utilization review physicians. His extensive experience includes a healthcare career of 21 years in the US as a practicing physician executive and holding senior management positions, followed by over 14 years in Thailand as a senior management and a board of director member in leading international hospital. Let me introduce to you also Mr. Vishal Bali, the CEO for the Fortis Healthcare, the fastest growing integrated healthcare delivery network across 10 countries in the Asia Pacific. He has more than 2 decades of healthcare experience and has successfully integrated strategy, operations, and management setting industry benchmarks. Mr. Vishal holds a Bachelor of Science and MBA from Bombay University and completed an advanced hospital management program from Boston. He is an invited member of the Strategic Initiatives Group of Joint Commission International, US, and the Global Agenda Healthcare Council of World Economic Forum. Let me first call on Dr. Hm13PlenaryII for his presentation.
Swadikap. Thank you for the very nice presentation. I hope the time was not counted into my part. I'm from Bangkok Hospital. This logo you see in the river, and welcome all of you to Bangkok. Today, I would like to share my experience in talk about transformation of organizations, talking about transformation of one organization to a set organization that we desire for them to do. With our experience, I humbly have to say that what I'm going to say after this is just experience of a long time, 41 years of organization. And we failed many times, we succeeded many times, and I will just outline whatever we learned from our long journey. With 31 hospitals now in operation, in the span of 41 years, and another 11 on the board. As we speak here, we have a mega duty to make sure all of our hospitals, at least they have standard of quality and safety the same level. And they do have the same standardization. As you can see, it's a real huge opportunity here. Total culture transformation, transform one organization to the standard that you hold. When we build a new hospital or we acquired an existing hospital, we'd like to transform them to the level of the required hospital we wish them to be. So total culture transformation, starting with we have to transform the people inside that organization. And then along with try to transform the organization to a desired standard. Being Thailand, we have hospital accreditation or JCI, or on top of that CCPC, whatever you like to do. And then until organization is full of transformed people moving in the same direction of desired standard. So this is what we have to do every time we have a new sister hospital. So first, transforming people. What is it that we think is to transform people in the new organization? We bring them into our group. We think the transformed people has to be competent, and we can measure them only by subjective measurement, which is very difficult. We talk about all those competency, and then the skill, which we measure them by objective, by KPIs, in which we put in 4 standards. Standard number 1 is the clinical standard. Number 2 is hospitality standard. As Thailand is the world leader in pleasing people, we are very proud of that standard, and we're very strict in making sure all of our hospitals are having that standard. And number 3, efficiency standard. We have to do that because we have to run a hospital efficiently. And last is environmental standard. As the world moves into the future, this is the part a hospital cannot neglect. We might have to, we will have to put some budget to it, but we have to do it. So this is what we call quality people. How do we transform them? I wonder where the computer is at. So we can. People transformation, we have to start with having trained on those 4 kind of standards. And then we will have to be with them at all time. This is a very important part, because once we train them, we have to be with them for a long period of time, because we have to move people's skill up to those standards. So we are talking about beginners, we're talking about competent, we talk about the people going up to the level of proficient, and then go to the level of master and level of elite. And we just simply use the theory of K. Anders Ericsson. He published this in 1990. Lots of people disagree with that, but we use that as a tool for us to keep people at what they're doing. Tracer. Why we do that? Because we want them to move up the skill level. This is how we transform people. Organization transform. Now we want to transform organization along with it. Organization, we have to look at quality structure, hardware, processes, peopleware, the quality, how do we going to make sure this could be seen in most of the standards, the accreditation standard already. Being Thailand or being JCI or international, they have all those already. And quality standard, clinical, hospitality, efficiency, and environment. And we look at the outcomes, and from those outcomes we do tracers and continuous quality improvement. We start with adjust a standard, and from there we do the training, and from there we trace them. Then we use outside people from different organizations to audit across the hospital, being outside audit, and then whatever we see, we do continuous quality improvement and adjust the standard again, going around in circle, which this one we call organization transformation cycle. So total culture transformation coming down to transform the people first, along with transforming organization, which we're going to call it combine people transformation with organization transformation. Now, the transformation is different for each hospital we have. We transform by cultivation, by put the seed in, and from there it takes time for them to go up. You talk about, when we talk about timing of Erickson, when we can think people's proficiency is around 1,000 hours, and that's almost around, you can say, and every day you work like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and we go on with that. We found out that when our people are transformed into the level of proficient, it takes around 2.5 years. So you talk about working with somebody for 2.5 years and make sure that they come up to that level. Cultivation, you see it, and then it take around 4.5 years to proficient, and after that they can move up to whatever level they want. So this one is just plant the seed down and watch them grow. For this organization, you cannot do it with the new organization, brand new. We made a mistake by did one, and it was disaster because patient came in and they found out that the safety quality is not the same like in Bangkok, and they left. By the time we grew up to the level, like 2.5 years, nobody come to us anymore because we have not the same culture like they have in the mothership. So what we did, we do transplantation. We start with a smaller hospital, and we put everybody from the mothership, already transformed people, the whole set into that hospital. So day one they come in, they can see that this is the same culture as Bangkok Hospital, and that one was very successful. So we learned from that learning. For hospital existing, we can do two things. One, we can mix them by put the new team. Put the team from our hospital in there. From day one, look like our hospital, but at the same time, we cultivate their own people. By the time they have grown up to the level of proficiency, we bring our people back home. So this seemed to be the best model for a hospital that already existing. and we want to change their organization, transform them to our level. So we consider once they go up to proficient level and they go in the same direction, and they can do things without us have to lead them anymore, we call them have a quality culture. The quality culture has three aspects there. Respond with, we make sure they're responsible. Everybody feels it's the responsibility of everybody from top leader to the janitor. We measure them by engagement. And we found out that the engagement for employees has to be more than 60%. And we also do engagement for medical dental staff. And there has to be passing 70%. And we check, for medical staff we do every 6 months because they are very volatile. They can move a lot from different hospital to hospital. And for employees we do it yearly. And number two, that organization have to be very hardworking in training, in changing, and doing in the cycle of organization transfer. And number three, perseverance to maintain a transformed culture because we want sustainability. So tracers, what the previous speaker was talking about is very important for one organization to go up and then sustain. So we never let our guards down. Even Bangkok Hospital here, we have been accredited for at least now more than 6 years now. We still trace every week. We still do that every week. We top people like me going down to meet with them and listen to the summary every week. So whenever I have chance, I will go down there, show the commitment that top down, we are very concerned about our culture. So total culture transformation project. We start with set up organization, orders, try to set up organization chart. We use integrated practice units. And then we achieve expected standard, clinical. Being here, we use JCI, and hospitality, we use HCAPS. Efficiency, we're using lean and streamline, and environmental, we use LEAD. And total culture transformation for people and organization, and achieve total quality culture. We usually measure them whenever they're up to proficient level, minimum of 2.5 years before we watch them remotely. And continuous in transformation for that organization has to learn the culture of tracers and CQI. So my note that we learn from our organization is that for total culture transformation, number one, only transform people can transform people. So organization that want people to be like you have to be that first before you go and teach them. Number two, only transform organization can transform organization. The hospital has to be that culture, organization-wise, before you go and transform the other organization. And number three, this one we learn in a very painful way. Only one transformer for one transformee. We have more standard. Just take example, one just clinical like JCI. We have one hospital that we have 3 hospitals helping because we thought we have to share responsibility. The 3 hospitals, all of them had JCI standard. Yes, they do pass all the standard, but the way they do it, different for each standard. So even though that hospital was a small hospital, only 30-bed hospital, it was the most difficult hospital we transformed in our lifetime. So we learned from that, and one hospital, we have only one transformer to transform that hospital. It's much easier. We have the other hospital that we built, we used one transformer, and took only 9 months that hospital can pass JCI from building. So we learned, this is the lesson we learned. So critical success factors. Number 1, strong, determined people. Leadership and lead team. I'm glad that the new standard point more and more to leadership, because without strong leadership, I don't think you can have transformation in time, and after they achieve it, it won't be sustainable, because nobody will watch them. Number 2, absolute change management and knowledge skills. Number 3, stay on course with long-term total team commitment. Stay on course with long-term total commitment. Number 4, perseverance forever until the end of the world, or until the hospital is gone from the face of the earth. So, my last word is going to be patient. It will take 2.5 years before whoever you work with can be transformed. So, with that, I thank you very much.
A very good morning, everybody. Thank you, Ashok, for this invite again. It's always a pleasure to be back at HMA. And it's also good to see some very familiar faces here, year after year. Shows the level of commitment that all of us have over here in improving healthcare around the world. So what I'm going to do over the next 10-15 minutes, because Ashok has been raising red flags sitting over there that we are running behind time, is to try and create some basics and try and make it a little light. It's been a heavy morning. Paula did a great job on bringing the safety aspect of patient care and what JCI is doing. So it's probably important for us to look at what really sets the culture for healthcare excellence around the world, and what is it that we can do from a very basic standpoint to try and make a difference. The future of healthcare is probably one of the most debated subjects globally. Whether it's the developed world or the developing world, we constantly have conversations in terms of where healthcare is going to head. Our conversations fundamentally revolve around 3 basic areas. How can we make healthcare more affordable? How can we make healthcare more accessible? And how can we make healthcare really deliver on quality standards? And these conversations do not see borders around the world. These conversations happen right here in the developing world, and equally around the developed world, whether it's the United States or Europe. So one of the most debated topics of the world is currently also one of the most promising sectors around the world. And the fact that almost 900,000 of us are here this morning shows the promise that we all believe in the future of healthcare and what it can do to deliver better patient care around the world. So, to make things light, we are all talking about one single agenda, and that's the arrival of consumerism in healthcare. So no matter which part of the world we belong to, we fundamentally have begun to see our patients as consumers. And what a delight it is to look at somebody as a consumer, because your world begins to then change. Healthcare has a lot to learn from many other sectors around the world. We talked about aviation just about 15-20 minutes back. Healthcare has a lot to learn from hospitality. And this is a country, Thailand, which probably woke up the entire world in terms of what good service can be all about in healthcare. Healthcare has got a lot to learn from information technology and the precision that goes with it. And healthcare has a lot to learn from many other sectors around leadership and managerial skills. So welcome the era of consumerism, and welcome the era of trying to make healthcare excellence happen in our own environments. Let's just quickly take a look at a few data points which should wake up all of us in terms of that while there are challenges, there are also great opportunities. So 100 million people around the world are pushed down the poverty line because healthcare is getting more and more expensive around the world. So something for us to get concerned about. There are 1.5 million errors, and this is a number which is constantly talked about from the US in terms of what medication errors can do to people. And so therefore, the push for safety and the push for precision, the push for quality and the push for change. 50% the number of people in developed countries where people with higher incomes have better access to physicians than those with lower income. Accessibility. So irrespective again, so these are developed world numbers, that 50% of the people who can probably afford better healthcare have better access in terms of the quality of healthcare or the clinical excellence that they can achieve. 2 times in many parts of the world, around the world, healthcare expenses are going 2 times faster than the economic growth. And the current turbulence that we are seeing, again, in the financial markets, in the developing world, all of a sudden our currencies are going absolutely haywire. Again goes to show the amount of change and turbulence that can be caused through the financial markets in terms of creating more and more challenges around affordability. 1 in 10 is the estimated number of patients affected by healthcare-related infections in the European Union. Again, developed world phenomena. 35 years is what we could see as longevity of life in some of the developing countries because people do not have the basics of healthcare in place. So some data for all of us to chew on, fundamentally because we are talking about an era where there are going to be accelerators and there are going to be inhibitors. So let's take a look at in terms of the global challenges that surround us and are brought by the 5 key drivers and accelerators, which are going to fundamentally help us look at the phenomena of healthcare excellence a little differently. Accelerators, globalization. The fact that all of us are here from so many different countries, and the fact that the healthcare consumer today has a global choice and global care options. Globalization has become one of the key drivers of healthcare delivery, not just from the perspective of a different market access, but also from the perspective of that quality standards are becoming more and more uniform around the world. So will quality continue to be a differentiator? Probably not over a period of time. Will excellence continue to be a differentiator? Probably yes, always. Consumerism, we just talked about it. The changing demographics and lifestyle. We all keep talking about aging and lifestyle-related disorders related to probably one of the key factors of change, which is obesity, and what all it is going to do to actually challenge all of us as healthcare providers. Diseases that are more expensive to treat, so we have constantly been talking about chronic diseases and how chronic diseases are going to push a lot of people into that line, which is the poverty line and reduction in affordability. New technologies in treatment. Healthcare loves the Dreamliners and the A380s. We constantly seek new technology. We constantly push for new technology. We constantly buy new technology, whether we can afford it or no, because we believe that technology is probably one of the biggest differentiators that healthcare can bring on the table for its patients. So something which the technological world keeps driving us to, which is also creating better diagnosis. So one big accelerator is technology. Let's look at what's going to inhibit us and what's going to really create the issues. Number 1, capital shortage. As the world goes through so many changes on the financial side, you're going to see less and less capital chasing healthcare. And you are going to see the flight of capital take place between countries because capital is not going to be very easily accessible. Societal expectations and norms in many countries around the world, we believe that healthcare is social good. And so therefore, there is a reorientation which is happening in many parts of the world where governments are probably getting back into healthcare delivery where massive privatization had happened. So you're going to see a very different world because there is a change taking place in terms of who is going to deliver healthcare and who's going to probably pay for it. The lack of aligned incentives, inability to balance the short and the long term. I think healthcare has a lot to learn in terms of the maturity of looking at long-term periods and what viability means in the long term rather than in the short term. Inability to access and share information. We still are struggling to create norms around patient information. We still are struggling a lot more today in terms of application of good information technology so that we can share data, so that we can improve patient care on account of data which is equally available to everybody. Lot of things to happen in that space than what has not happened. So we live in a very, very complex healthcare world, and it is getting more and more complex with a number of stakeholders that are going to be out there. It's going to be a web. And in this web, all of us as providers, as consumers, as suppliers, as people who are in the healthcare ecosystem are going to see a lot of change. Every sector which has gone through a cycle like this has taken decades to basically improve itself. Healthcare has the opportunity to learn from the excellence that many other sectors who have gone through this level of maturity have actually got incorporated. Our forces at work, and this is the reason why we want to drive our organizations towards excellence. Because there are multiple forces out there which will drive us to think about the fact that is excellence the only way to survive, and is excellence the only way to improvise. And to me, the way that I see it, I think it's a question more about survival than rather looking at all the other good things that come along with it. So the growing expectations of value from patients. Patients around the world are asking more and more questions to their providers than they ever did in the past. They are asking questions about their clinical improvement areas. They're asking questions on safety. They're asking questions on the amount of money that they're spending. So they are seeking a lot more value out of each one of us over here. So we are going to be pushed against the wall from the drive of consumers and from consumers expecting more from their healthcare providers. The broad global awareness of quality, and thanks to initiatives of the Joint Commission International, which has taken quality standards around the world. So patients are going to push us constantly to showcase what kind of quality standards are being followed in our own environment. The increasing awareness amongst patients to choose their healthcare. Gone are the days where you would build great infrastructure and you would expect the patients to walk through your corridors. Gone are the days when you would just chase infrastructure creation, thinking that there is a huge demand-supply gap in healthcare, so they will come any which way. Not going to happen. Emerging approaches to promoting health, and of course there is a huge ancillary industry which is now taking shape in terms of which is going to deliver and probably help all of us deliver better healthcare from an excellence perspective. The expense, as we talked about in terms of resource challenges, but not the least, the increasing cost sharing between public and private, and that's something which, as I said, is going to get more and more emphatic in regions around the world. So the world is connected economically, socially, and technically. And this is going to be the backdrop which should take us in terms of a very new agenda. Are we constantly going to just talk about costs in healthcare? And many of us have used cost as probably one of the biggest differentiators in the marketplace to sort of differentiate ourselves from our key competitors. So if you keep on shifting cost, whether higher or lower, you're probably not going to deliver too much. You're probably going to have balance sheets which are stretched out. You're going to have P&Ls which are going to demand a lot more from you. And later, sooner or later, you're going to be under the pressure of the so-called cost structures that we've created around ourselves. So can we now begin to see a little bit more value in what we are trying to do as healthcare providers? I'm sure many of you have gone through some of this before, but these are the 5 forces, and this was created many years back by Michael Porter. And this is, industry after industry has gone through something like this. So I think the bigger ones over here are fundamentally that as sectors and industries evolve, there is a lot of change which happens in competitive forces. And what is the force that probably would continue to survive is this one. We constantly talk about consumer satisfaction. We constantly talk about the fact that consumer satisfaction will take us a long while. That consumer satisfaction will make us and help us create better institutions. Can we get into a little bit of a different thinking over here? Can you begin to think about customer success or consumer success? Consumer satisfaction can sometimes end up being very momentary. Customer success is a very, very long-term approach and a lifelong approach to longevity of relationships. Customer satisfaction and a lot of data and revolving around customer satisfaction can sometimes make people change very quickly. But if you develop long-term successful relationships with your consumers, they survive the lifetime of organizations. So can we begin to think of consumer satisfaction and customer success as two different agenda items for us to pursue as healthcare providers? This is thought number one. The setting of culture for healthcare excellence revolves around the 4 Ps, and I'm sure many of you have gone through these 4 Ps time and again. Process, people, performance, planning. This jigsaw, any which way you put it, looks the same. These 4 documents, these 4 agendas, these 4 quadrants, any which way you try and pick them together, these are the ones which together form the entire agenda of healthcare excellence. So what are organizations which have a culture of healthcare excellence? How do they see themselves? And what is the agenda that they follow? And if you go around this circle, it starts obviously with medical excellence, that they have the foundation of good medical excellence. Their behavior reflects awareness around excellence. They have continued analysis, and one of the biggest issues around healthcare has been data and analytics, and happy to see much more of that happening around the world. There is great teamwork and customer service. Many of these organizations are more empathic and sensitive to their consumers. And last but not the least, there is an awareness for cultural diversity. So keep that at the back of your mind. I won't go through all this again because these are fundamentally the 10 characteristics that are associated with a culture of excellence. Go back into industry after industry and you will find them, those who have excelled, you will find them talking the same 10 points. It's just that in healthcare, we've chosen point number 8, which is patient-centered. We chose point number 5, which is the interdependence of the care team. So we've sort of customized it to healthcare by bringing in these elements. But fundamentally, everything that revolves around excellence are these 10 points. So what do? Most of the time, and all of us sitting over here would like to shut up at most times when people are complaining. Because we believe that closing our eyes can shut ourselves from the rest of the world. But the problem, my dear friends, is that closing the eyes only makes the problems more grave. And if all of us believe that the future of healthcare is what we want to create together, then we need to speak up. Then we need to think about a lot more what to do for the future. 90%, this is Peter Drucker, and I just love this quote. 90% of what we call management consists of making it difficult for people to get things done. All of you are the greatest of leaders in healthcare. And you're all sitting here debating the future of healthcare. But when you go back in your own organizations, probably what you're creating is more difficulty in making your organizations run. So think about what you want to do as effective leadership. So key barriers to organization excellence, I'll not take more than 2 minutes, but this is good and this is important. Leaders who don't get it. Second one, leaders who are unwilling to walk the talk. Third, leaders who are unwilling to invest time, energy, resources. Leaders who are or who continue to be impatient about how to get results done. Leaders who refuse to face reality. So, it's all about us. So healthcare excellence starts with all of us, because we as leaders are the ones which will and can make it or break it. So as leaders, it's our choice whether we want healthcare excellence to happen in our environments, or it's our choice not to let that happen at all. So wake up, ladies and gentlemen. It's 10:30 in the morning. I want to leave you with two other thoughts, and one is around benchmarking. The very concept of benchmarking is mediocrity. Because when all of us begin to benchmark each other, we are all moving towards mediocrity. Because if there is nobody who's thinking about the future, you are going to just continue to benchmark the present. So one of the key thoughts that I want to leave behind with all of you is that while you continue to benchmark, it's important for your organizations to future mark. Because if you don't have your eyes on the future, you'll be too crawled up in the problems of the present. So benchmarking is all about present, future marking is about the future. And if all of you sitting over here think that you're great leaders, then probably you need to start thinking a lot about the future. Last slide, and this is on excellence. And just go through it. I know we are behind time, but go through it. Excellence can be obtained if you care more than what others think is wise. Excellence can be obtained if you risk more than others think is safe. Excellence can be obtained if you can dream more than others think is practical. And last but not the least, excellence can be obtained if you expect more than others think is possible. So if you chase the impossible dream, you are going to continue to benchmark yourself around services that are burnt into our consciousness. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much. Again, join me in thanking our two good speakers.